shutdown, which is in its third day. Just a short while ago, the Senate passed a key vote by an 81-18 margin to advance a bill to end the shutdown. A vote on final passage is slated for just a little bit from now. The leader of the Senate Democrats, by the way, gave no credit to the president for the end of this impasse.
President Trump's unwillingness to compromise caused the Trump shutdown and brought us to this moment. The facts are well known. Since our meeting in the Oval Office on Friday, the President and I have not spoken, and the White House refused to engage in negotiations over the weekend. The great deal-making President sat on the sidelines.
Moments ago, the White House responded, slamming Senator Schumer right back.
We were pleased to see Senator Schumer accept the deal that President Trump put on the table from the very beginning, which was to responsibly fund the government and debate immigration as a separate issue.
Let's start at Capitol Hill. CNN congressional correspondent Phil Mattingly is there. And Phil, when should we expect those votes, A? And B, what did the Democrats get out of this?
Or maybe a little bit longer. They're dealing with some technical issues now. Nothing that's going to be problematic for the bill. Once they move, it will then go over to the House, where the House is expected to move very quickly. Republicans very clear that they're going to support this. That's all they need to move it forward. At some point later this afternoon, early evening, the government will be reopened again. So how did we get to this point? Obviously, that's the big question right now. And you heard Senator Schumer's comments. You can see Senate Majority Leader McConnell. You see the White House. What they're all doing right now is trying to frame this, obviously. They want to see, or at least try and make sure that their side either wins or gets enough credit for things. Here's what actually happened and what actually matters. What Democrats accepted was a commitment from Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell that if by February 8th, the deadline of the next short-term funding bill, there is no resolution on the docket issue, immigration will come to the Senate floor. Not a specific bill, not necessarily a specific deal, just that the Senate will move to immigration on the Senate floor and they will have votes on that. That is meaningful. There hasn't been a commitment of that before. That's something that Democrats were looking for. Here's what Democrats didn't get. They didn't get a commitment that the vote would happen before February 8th, so it's not tied to the spending bill. They didn't get a commitment that Speaker Paul Ryan would take whatever the Senate does and put it on the House floor. Those are the issues, and probably one of the bigger things, they didn't get a commitment that the president wouldn't be involved. Those were all things that were requested over the course of the last couple of days. Those are things that weren't delivered upon. Majority Leader McConnell saying simply, I can't deliver that, you're not going to get that. That, Brooke, is why when you looked up the Senate floor vote, 81-18, as you noted, 16 Democrats voted against, and you could go up and down the list of progressives, folks on the left who felt like they caved, that they shouldn't have given in on this, that these commitments weren't firm enough, that either they couldn't take the majority leader's word, they certainly don't have a lot of trust with House Republicans right now, they've seen too many immigration efforts wither on the vine in front of the House Republican Conference, and obviously there's not a lot of trust in the Democratic caucus right now with President Trump and where he's going to come down on these things. Just a short while ago, Brooke, a group of Republican senators, Senator John Cornyn, Senator Tom Cotton, Senator James Lankford, a group going over there that are considered more hardline on immigration, kind of underscoring that concern on the Democratic side. If those senators are going to be the ones that are involved in a final deal, Democrats aren't going to support that deal. In the end, I think it was 3 days that probably not a lot of people are very proud of, but the hope on the Democratic side right now is that this sets the stage for some type of resolution. But one thing is very, very clear, Brooke. This doesn't end anything. There's no major deals. There's still a huge number of things that need to be dealt with, including the most divisive of all, and that's immigration.
Yikes. It's a short game, long game situation, I know, for both of these parties. Phil Mattingly, in the thick of it all, we appreciate you. And Phil mentioned the president. While we know that the president is pleased the shutdown is about to be over, he has yet to say so on camera. So let's go to our senior White House correspondent, Pamela Brown. And Pamela, just talking to our friend Dana Bash a bit ago, she was saying in this regard, she said the president sort of stumbled into victory on this one. And we know that he's been noticeably quiet, right, during this shutdown. Are there any plans for the president to at all make public comments?
That's right, Eric.
Well, that is still an open question, and my colleague Jeff Zeleny was hearing earlier today that the president would come out and say something, make a comment, if and when this reaches his desk. As you saw, Sarah Sanders, the White House press secretary, came out and read a statement from the president. So it's still a bit of a question mark in terms of what we're going to hear from the president. And as you pointed out, he was noticeably quiet over the weekend. Now, the White House says that he was working hard behind the scenes, making calls to Republicans, making sure that the shutdown went smoothly. But we also have reporting from my colleague Kevin Liptak, Brooke, that some of his aides were urging him to stay behind the scenes because they were worried that by the president inserting himself that it could cause some confusion. You saw what played out on Friday when Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer came here to the White House, had the meeting, and then there was sort of a back and forth between the White House and the Hill in terms of the negotiating message being muddled, what actually came out of that. It was interesting that Sarah Sanders said that Chuck Schumer basically, and the rest of the Democrats accepted what President Trump had laid out on the table on Friday. That's a little bit confusing. It is true that on Friday, this continuing resolution until February 8th was on the table, and at that time the Democrats didn't accept. But if you look at Chuck Schumer's account, there was discussion about funding for the border wall, and as you know, the White House has been very clear about the 4 pillars that it wants for any immigration deal. As we know, Brooke, that was not part of what we saw happen today on Capitol Hill with the votes in the Senate. Now the big question is, what's going to happen next? Are we going to be in the same position a few weeks from now? What role will the president play if a DACA deal passes through the Senate? How involved will he be with making sure that it gets through the House? That is still unclear, Brooke.
Right. Let's go back to Capitol Hill. Pamela, thank you so much at the White House for us. Let me turn now to Republican Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana. We spoke this weekend, sir. It's nice to see you again under different circumstances. Welcome back. I want you to listen here to the leader of the Congressional Black Caucus, who is from your state, and his reaction to the deal that expected to end this shutdown. This is from Chairman Cedric Richmond about the Senate Democrats. Quote, "They are getting their butts kicked." Short and sweet, Senator. Do you agree?
Cedric's a good man. I would put it differently. I'm very happy right now. I want to thank Senator Schumer. There's an old expression that life is simpler when you plow around the stump. I think Senator Schumer decided to plow around the stump, and I want to thank him for that. This maintains the status quo. We'll continue to negotiate. If we haven't reached an agreement by February the 8th, Senator McConnell is going to put a bill on the floor, and we'll be able to talk about amnesty, sanctuary cities, border security, diversity visa lottery, a commonsensical, colorblind immigration system like Canada and Australia have that looks like somebody designed the thing on purpose. We'll be able to talk about anything and all things immigration. Then we'll start voting. And if 60 votes come out on one of the bills or amendments to one of the bills, then that bill will go to the House. I have no idea what the House will do.
Yeah.
And then it'll go to the president. But what Senator Schumer wanted, and I don't blame him for trying, he wanted us to drop everything, do a bill only on DACA, guarantee that it would pass the Senate, guarantee it would pass the House, and guarantee that the president would sign it. And it just doesn't work.
Right, which is why a lot of progressives in the Democratic Party would probably agree with your friend from Louisiana and saying that they did get their butts kicked, with all due respect, forgive my language there. But they do believe that.
Well,
go ahead.
Let me defend Senator Schumer. I can't believe I'm doing this.
Go ahead.
Senator Schumer is very smart, and he's a very shrewd tactician. He believed passionately in what he was doing. But, you can believe that 2 + 2 = 5, but that doesn't make you correct. This was the wrong approach, and I think he finally realized it wasn't getting his side or my side anywhere, and I want to thank him for doing what was best for the American people.
But for the rest of his party, for the other Democrats, Senator Kennedy, I mean, should they trust your Republican leader, and I mean that in terms of Mitch McConnell, should they trust Mitch McConnell when he says his word he's used is his intention to take up immigration? So they trust him?
Yes.
Okay.
Categorically, yes.
Okay, I want to ask you about the president, just the president's role in all of this, because we heard from your Republican colleague, Republican Senator Jeff Flake, over the weekend, saying that it would not have been helpful to have had President Trump President Trump's help during all of this. Do you agree?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I know that's Jeff's perspective. This is something that for the moment the Senate had to work out, and we worked it out. Now, at some point, before we pass a bill, if we pass a bill, it would be helpful to know exactly what the president is thinking, because you don't want to go pass a bill or waste your time on a bill if he's going to veto it.
Right.
So I think that would be helpful. But, you know, could we have broken through sooner if he had been more involved with us? I don't know. You know, I really don't know.
All right. Well, we should be hearing from the president at some point. Whether he speaks publicly today, we don't know. But knowing what the president's thinking is probably a good thing. Senator Kennedy, thank you so much. Nice to see you again. We have more on our breaking news here. Did Senate Democrats blink? And will we be back in the same place 3 weeks from now? We'll talk to Jake Tapper about that next.
So what do you guys think? As the Senate reaches the deal for the government shutdown, so we'll vote for Carcino for life. Yeah, the vote is coming soon. So they passed it on to be voted on. My country. Yep. Shouts out to Canada. Adam Darby. What's going on? Mr. Sledge. You're out of work, Nicole? Where do you work? Like, what branch? Not like, what's your location, but what government job you work at? Do you know they're making people work the National Science Foundation? Okay, I don't even know what that is. But they're making the people work. The military and everybody else, they have to work for free. The New York City Statue of Liberty, you have to work and won't get a check. Who in the world want to go to Antarctica? You sending people to Antarctica? Who's trying to go there? People at the Statue of Liberty, they're taking funds out of people's taxes to pay for the people at the Statue of Liberty. So the public funds is going to cover the Statue of Liberty that's supposed to be covered by the government. I mean, y'all actually have people that come there and be like, yo, I want to go to Antarctica. I heard it's really cold. I mean, what they... I don't even know how the commercial would go for that. Antarctica, be a polar bear waving with a Coca-Cola in his hand. What in the world? Be like, oh, look at that. They got an igloo and they taking fish out of the ice. Come here for some adventure. Come to Antarctica. Come to Antarctica. See life. I'd be like, everything here is clear and white. That polar bear's disguised. He can creep up on me. I mean, that polar bear creeping up on me, he might not want to eat a seal that day. All right, now bring me a heater down there. Next thing you know, I'm causing a global event. Because I'm like, man, I got to have it at least 85. They finna light this igloo up. I done been and melt the ice and ice caps are falling off. I can't be down there. I've been and caused so much damage. Maybe you can't have that. That's too hot. I'd be like, man, well, I'm going to freeze to death. Can you imagine a strip club in Antarctica? Everybody wearing winter coats, shaking it. She's taking off a scarf. Woohoo! No way. So they sending scientists over there. I don't know what they doing.
Big legislation by February 8th. Then Leader McConnell promised that there would be a vote with an amendment on immigration. But no commitment as to how that will turn out, no commitment on what the House of Representatives will do, which is really big because the House of Representatives in the past has simply not taken up the issue of immigration even after the Senate passes something. And then still no clear direction on what the White House will do. So a lot of people think the Democrats blinked, a lot of people think the Democrats caved. Even if you're trying to be charitable, they got something, they did not get a ton.
What's the likelihood of us having Groundhog Day all over again in 3 weeks?
Possible. I think if Leader McConnell upholds his end of the deal, we won't have a government shutdown in 2.5 weeks. We'll have an immigration debate in 2.5 weeks. Now, what happens then, that's the big mystery because it is possible. Let me do the most optimistic scenario.
Okay, let's be glass half full for now.
In terms of what happens in terms of there being some sort of legislation. The Senate passes some sort of immigration bill. Something gets 60 votes. I don't know what it is, but something gets 60 votes. Maybe it's the Gang of Six bill. Maybe it's something more conservative. But something passes. Then the question is, will the House of Representatives pass something? Right now there is a bill offered by Congressman Goodland of Virginia. It's a conservative bill. There's concerns among House leadership that it's a little too conservative. It needs to be a little bit less. That's not to say to make it a liberal or moderate bill, but slightly less conservative. Let's say they pass that. Then there is a conference committee where they have to reconcile the differences between the bills. And then they go back to the House and back to the Senate for another round, and then maybe something lands on President Trump's desk, and then maybe he signs it. So there's a lot of maybes there, and a lot of possibilities in places where this entire thing might unravel.
I think one piece that's getting lost in all of this is CHIP. Right, this is the Children's Health Insurance Program, which will be extended, thanks to all of this, will be extended by 6 years. And we just remind everyone, that this is the program that affects, 9 million children in this country.
That's right. This is for kids whose parents make too much money to qualify for Medicaid, which is for the lowest income individuals, but they don't make enough money that they can afford health insurance. So a lot of kids stuck in the middle here. This program will be extended for 6 years through this government funding bill. There are still concerns among Democrats who say that there isn't the funding for the community health centers and other places like that where these kids can actually
I'm working on that right now, Mr. Darby.
But yes, at least the CHIP program, which is a bipartisan bill started by Ted Kennedy
as we speak,
years ago, at least that is going forward.
As we speak, let me see.
What's up? As this is part 2. That's right, everybody, part 2. And you will learn more about what's going on behind the scenes, things you may have heard, things you might not have heard that went on during that time with Cleveland that you're basically witnessing now. As the team is falling apart and we'll see what happens. But this is the truth behind the fall of the Cleveland Cavaliers, part 2. And let's get into it. Now, last time we left off, Dwayne Wade's on the team now. And
well, I'll see the rest of the video when it comes out. But yes, we're working on it right now.
Lastly, I imagine you think politics in your sleep. But,
that Tiny and T.I. video, the best comedy of the year.
Last night, Mr. Philly Man, we've got the picture of you and your pops on the field last night. What was that like for you?
It was great.
Did you sleep?
It was just, now we have the Super Bowl to contend with, but just as a lifelong Eagles fan, I grew up just a few miles from Veterans Stadium where they used to play. It was such a dream to go. One of the vice presidents of the Eagles, a guy named Ari Reutman, went to my high school. He was years behind me. Saw all my rabid, insane pro-Eagles tweets and asked if I would want to come. And I got to bring my pop, who is a pediatrician in that neighborhood, South Philadelphia, and it was great. It was very cool walking onto the field. I mean, this is stuff that I normally don't get to do, and certainly my dad has never gotten to do. So it was very exciting, and obviously that game was just unbelievable.
Are you going to try to snag Super Bowl tickets?
I don't know. I generally don't think that I'm good luck for teams that I root for. Last night was a rare exception.
So if we're Eagles fans, we don't want you at the Super Bowl. Is that what you're throwing down?
Well, I don't know. I was there last night, and it worked, and it was a tremendous victory. So I don't know. Maybe I am good luck. I don't know. I'm not pushing for it. We'll see what happens.
There you go. I think I'm going to root for the Eagles, not because I have love for you, Jake Tapper, but because of the Pats and my Atlanta Falcons, and I don't even want to talk about the Super Bowl last year. So let's take the Pats down. The Patriots are cheaters, bro. The Patriots cheat. I mean, this is just a fact, as established by investigations. They're a cheating team. I'm sorry. You go tell our friend John Berman that. Good luck with that.
I mean, the facts speak for themselves, but we'll let Berman tell himself whatever he wants to tell.
All right, Tapper. We'll see you at the top of the hour.
All right,
thank you so much. See you then. Still ahead on here on CNN. The votes in the Senate and House moments away. We're keeping a close eye on activity there on the floor. Also ahead, breaking news: this Russian spy ship.
Now, anyway, what's going to end up happening is this: they're going to vote. It's going to pass, and it's going to be voted on for an extension for 3 weeks. After the 3 weeks, we will be right back here. Sportsbook 89, what was you working at that you weren't getting paid? What do you do? Oh. He's like, I was just kidding. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. I don't know if you can leave donations on this page yet. You might can. I don't know. No, I haven't.
Shut down on the Republicans. The country's been conditioned to believe the Republicans want the government to shut down, but it didn't work this time. And I think that the White House and the Republicans in general put this on Chuck Schumer, where it belonged. And after a weekend of trying to push it back on the president, and, remember Chuck had this big sign, the Trump shutdown. No one bought it, and they collapsed.
Let's agree that this, so far, for all intents and purposes, is a good look for the Republicans, that this is a win for the Republicans. But didn't the president sort of stumble into victory here? I mean, what role did he really play in
This notion of the president stumbling into victory keeps on happening. He keeps on winning. He keeps on giving us...
There's a difference between winning and stumbling into winning.
I get it, but the notion that he's stumbling into winning, that's sort of a media concept that's not based on reality. He's either the luckiest guy on the planet who keeps on winning, or actually he knows what he's doing. He's a very successful man in many spheres, in very influential spheres, and he didn't do it by stumbling into the top of the media world, the top of the political world, the top of the hotel world. He didn't stumble into these things. He's actually good at what he does. And what he does, sometimes is to stand on the sideline and let other people do things in the front. Sometimes it's to insert himself. And people go crazy when he inserts himself, and they go crazy when he stands on the sideline, and he keeps on winning.
It just sounded like he'd been more on the sideline, and so I was just wondering how he could really claim victory in this one. How do you see it?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's anybody winning or losing in this short term. I think, today is a battle, but we don't know who's going to win the war. And, the winners and losers to me here are the people whose paychecks, the federal workers whose paychecks are in limbo, and the dreamers whose entire lives and futures are in limbo. We get too caught up too often when things like this happen, when we see the two parties in complete conflict about what the political cost to Republicans or the political cost to Democrats and whose winning is going to be. It's about the people affected. The guys in Congress and the guys in the White House, they're still cashing their paychecks. It's the federal workers, it's the dreamers who have everything up in the air. How do I see it? I don't know. Ask me February 9th or maybe before. I think that, we have seen this kind of spiking of the football before at the halftime by Donald Trump and some Republicans. We saw it in healthcare and we saw it fail. And we have also seen them have victories, like through, the tax reform, for example. I don't know where this is going to end up. I think that Chuck Schumer showed that he can wrangle up enough votes to jam this up and to oppose the continuing resolution. I think he also showed that he's a squishy, do-gooder liberal who can't stand the pressure of seeing people hurt and affected, and the political pressure that comes with holding down the line on something like opposing a CR.
To Anna's point about let's wait and see where we are in 3 weeks, when Sarah Sanders said at the briefing, she read President Trump's statement on it. And there was one line that jumped out. He said, "We will make a deal if and only if it is good for the country." So let's wait and see. And I talked to 4 different Republicans on the Hill, all political stripes afterwards. They all thought that, yes, the Republicans had won to a certain extent. One hardliner said unconditional surrender, but the thing I heard more than anything was this: the whole thing is ridiculous. Everyone is acting like it's a big victory, that we're keeping the government open for 3 more weeks.
Sure.
We may be back in the same place.
Very much may well be.
Sure.
In the meantime, though, back on victory, I had Luis Gutierrez, a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, on with me in Washington on Saturday, and he was saying that take me to the wall, give me the hammer and nails. I will build the man a wall myself if that means protection for the dreamers. Isn't that, though, on substance? I mean, that is what the president wants, is this wall. Is that not a win for the president?
Oh, I think so. Look, I think Democrats have moved. I think people are willing to, if it's an exchange for dreamers, if it's an exchange for DACA, and you may not agree with the concept of the wall, you may not agree with it on the merits, but if it's a strategic decision, I think most people, a lot of Democrats have moved and are exactly where Luis Gutierrez is on this.
But can you believe that they're at the point where so many people, I'm sure,
Can I believe that my friend Luis is gonna get a brick and mortar and go build a wall? No, I think that's a stretch of the imagination.
No, I think a lot of Democrats thought pigs would be flying before this wall would ever be built, and now you have Chuck Schumer putting this notion of, all right, we'll build your wall on a platter to the president on Friday at the White House.
I've always thought we were just too stuck on the word wall.
It's interesting. If you go back, the president was portrayed only about the wall, always about the wall. But the reality is, from the beginning, when he campaigned, from the beginning, he always talked about a wall with a big, beautiful door. The president, I believe, is the one who's going to drive this country finally to the right compromise that he promised the American people. And it's going to be a compromise. That means that not everyone's going to love it. A lot of people are not going to like it. But what the president, I believe, understands is that this country is a generous country. Make us feel secure, and we're happy to be generous. But first you have to make us feel secure, and that's what got the compromise.
Well, we'll see what happens because of this man by the name of Stephen Miller, who has perhaps thwarted some notions of a deal in the past with Democrats. This is how Lindsey Graham...
You're sure he's a man, not a robot?
A man, robot, that's up for you to be the judge on that. And Navarro, this is what Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has said.
The reason we yank these things back is because Mr. Miller, I've known him for a long time. I know he's passionate, and I know he's an early supporter of the president. But I'll just tell you, his view of immigration has never been in the mainstream of the Senate. And I think we're never going to get there as long as we embrace concepts that cannot possibly get 60 votes. One of the concepts that I just completely reject is that we have too much legal immigration. Mr. Miller wants to restrict legal immigration at a time we have a worker shortage. We're a declining population. We need more legal immigration.
Jeff, you tell us, how much does the president speak with Stephen Miller? How much does he really listen to him?
I'm at the campaign. I'm not in the White House. I have no idea how much he does or doesn't speak to Stephen Miller. I don't think, however, that Lindsey Graham's representing the point of view that's going to ultimately be victorious. I think that the White House, it seems to me, has him backing Stephen Miller, sitting outside the White House. That's what I'm watching. And I think that Lindsey Graham, with respect to him, may be a little out of the mainstream on this issue. I think that what the president wants, what I think he senses the country wants, is to get to a place of much greater security. I think that the country is not willing to take risks for non-Americans, but they are willing to be much more generous to people already on the shores once we know we're secure.
What did you notice? You noticed something that Senator Graham
So he said not in the mainstream in the Senate. And also Lindsey Graham just came out a few minutes ago and said he's expanding his
I had 3 votes
to a gang of 60. In other words, he's going to reach out. He even said to some of the hardliners, to Senator Perdue and Senator Cotton. From what I'm hearing, realistically, what we're going to see Lindsey Graham do is now take and Durbin some of the more hardline positions and try to move them a little bit closer together for a deal. The hardliners held out, they won, they'll get a little something for it.
Okay. Look, I think Lindsey Graham is actually on the mainstream. DACA has the approval of over 80% of the American public. It is so hard to find any policy issue in America right now, any issue other than puppies and babies that can garner 90% approval of Americans, and yet DACA does it. I think Lindsey Graham, we have seen him for months now trying to work with Trump, trying to explain the issue to Trump, trying to be conciliatory and pragmatic and compassionate. Yeah. I think he is the mainstream.
Puppies and babies and
I hope.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Neither of which I have.
Coming up here, we're still waiting for this final vote on the budget deal. One Democratic lawmaker says the Senate Democrats got their butts kicked. We'll talk to a Democratic Congresswoman next.